The very first episode for this little series, The Dark Side of Steam, that I produced was of a game called Uriel's Chasm, a very bad parody of a wisdom tree game with unbearable gameplay and a story that was completely incomprehensible gibberish. True fact, at time of recording, Uriel's Chasm is the fourth lowest rated game on all of Steam. Uriel's Chasm was the result of a developer actively trying to make one of the worst games of all time. The game itself has clips of people bitching about it. This is one of the most universally reviled games on the entire distribution platform. So why, in the name of all that is or ever will be does it have a sequel? Ladies and gentlemen, I present for your consideration Uriel's Chasm 2. It has a subtitle, but I have no idea what it is or how you read it. I'm just going to assume it translates to Uriel's Chasm 2. You actually paid money for that? Right, so I'm just going to do my best to explain the plot of the game. You play as a blue girl who a disembodied voice found in the rope between the multiverse and plopped down in a frame floating around in space to tend a garden for his amusement. But antimatter human beings from across the multiverse foretold of the girl's arrival, and they send her gifts and tributes, which I guess take the form of giant monsters who spit fruit at you, requiring you to kill them with lasers from your face. You can't touch the tributes, and even if you could, the voice has its own suitor picked out for her. The game keeps dumping you in the garden where fire monsters try to burn down your trees, so you walk around dropping water monsters that may or may not actually fight the fire monsters, and after you dick around the garden for a little bit, you get struck by lightning. It says VGA color hack, and you see a few seconds of video footage of what appears to be a bombed out building. Show of hands, who's confused? After wading through this word vomit 3 or 4 times, you eventually realize that the player character is self-aware and views the game programmer, the disembodied voice, as God. The character doesn't understand why the designer keeps forcing her through levels and summoning lightning storms in her garden. From our perspective, it's the game creating levels, but from the character's perspective, it's God screwing with her life and putting her through life and death trials for no reason. The character constantly pleads with the programmer, wanting to know what she's done to incur such wrath and hardship and what she can do to please him. She constantly wonders what the purpose of her life is because the only world she's ever known is the garden, the game world that she was programmed into, where nothing ever happens except the hardships that are contrived to give the player levels. Uriel's Chasm 2 has an amazing central concept in its story, a philosophical conversation about religion utilizing the unexplored creator-creation dynamic between a programmer and their video game character as a framing device. The video game character is a helpless pawn to a creator who abuses their creation for the entertainment of themselves and others. It takes the concept of a self-aware video game character to its logical conclusion, as they ultimately are a tool and plaything made to suffer for the amusement of beings it will never know, unaware of the true nature of our designs and their existence. I am not joking. Uriel's Chasm 2 has one of the most brilliant, deconstructive, artistic premises to a video game that I have ever heard of, which is why it pisses me off that this brilliant idea is languishing in a game that's specifically designed to suck balls. After all, this is the sequel to Uriel's Chasm, specifically designed to be the worst game ever made. The plot is such poorly written tripe, it's impossible to care about the meta story. You've got a great concept and the potential to tell a phenomenal story and craft an artistic triumph, and it's being wasted by a guy pulling his pants down and yelling, "Look how big my poops are!" The game starts by dumping you into a boss that fires a metric shit ton of projectiles at you. And no, I don't know what this thing is or why it shoots fruit at you. This is what's known in gaming circles as a bullet hell shooter, where it takes careful maneuvering to survive, as this thing fires about 50 shots at once. You have 3 bombs that you can use to vaporize all the projectiles on the screen, and you have 2 little orbs orbiting you that I didn't even notice at first. You can use these orbs to absorb enemy projectiles, but their movement is completely random, and they're often somewhere off to the side where they don't do diddly dick. If you absorb enough shots with the orbs, your character pukes rainbows for a second or two, but the Technicolor vomit attack is triggered the second you fill up this meter to the side, so oftentimes it just goes to waste. Apart from the bombs being a kinda cool mechanic, it really just is a bog-standard Space Invader shooter, just with an enemy that was designed by an asshole. And I have no earthly clue what most of the crap on the side of the screen means. This risk meter that's always empty, it doesn't seem to do anything, these pieces of fruit that don't do anything. What is all this shit? Okay, I guess I won then. Don't see the monster die or anything. What the hell is Golan? Connect Ethernet now? All the rotations? What does any of this crap mean? I do not know. What does it mean? After the boss fight, you're dumped into this garden with 8 trees and a pool of water. These little fire sprites spread all over the map and damage the trees, so you collect water, dump water sprites everywhere, and just kinda hope that the water sprites attack the fire sprites. You have no means of directly attacking these enemies. This is really boring. You're just walking around dropping water everywhere and seeing what happens. Again, I have no idea what the hell most of this information off to the right means. I don't think there's any relevance to the fire or water winds crap, and it took me forever to even figure out what you're supposed to do. This level ends if you collect 6 pieces of fruit from these trees, which are arguably given oblique hint to, and that's it. Then you get struck by lightning. You get a few seconds of grainy design to look like a Sega CD footage, you get a long-ass Bible quote, and then you fight another boss. It's equally as poorly explained as the last boss. After this boss, you have another garden level where you do the exact same damn thing as the first time. After the garden level, you have another boss. After this boss, you have another garden level. After the garden level, you fight another damn boss. It's the same 2 levels over and over, just with slightly different monster designs. Is this all the game is? Fight a boss, pointless filler, fight another random boss? This is the best you can come up with? If you die once, you get sent back to the start of the game. No continues, no checkpoints, they don't even give you any health pickups. You start the game with 8 hits and you get 1 hit back at the start of every boss, and that's it. That's all the help you get. You have to fight 4 bosses, and counting, in a row, plus stupid filler levels in between where you can also take damage, all with 1 health bar. And every boss fills the screen with about 50 projectiles at once for their basic attacks. I've gotten to the 4th boss 8 times and died every single time I got to him because I'm just flat out of health by the time I get that far. Who the hell makes a bullet hell shooter where the entire premise is being ridiculously difficult to survive and then only gives you 1 life? Oh right, a guy who's deliberately trying to piss people off for attention. So the entire game is like this. Fight the same repetitive bosses you've already fought several times, do a tedious garden level that has almost no actual gameplay, repeat until you die and you get to do it all over again, trying in vain to get far enough to see something different. I know there's more to the game. The story page's trailer shows levels where you're surfing and fighting the game's creator or some shit, but I can't get past the 4th boss, and for all I know, there's even more bosses after that I still have to go through. The game doesn't give you a clue what's going on or how close you are to the end of the game. The game has no story. You get a poorly written text wall of gibberish with a half-hearted bullshit excuse why you're fighting monsters, and that's all the storyline you get. It all began with the amniotic lens. I don't know what that sentence means! All the rest of the text in the game is Bible quotes or the protagonist going, "Are you there, God?" Which is the full extent of what the game does with its premise. We're left completely adrift with no goals, no setting, no idea where the hell we are, no characters to latch onto, no motivation, nothing! The most incentive you have to keep playing the game is just morbid curiosity of whether anything ever actually happens or not. I'd bet you pretty much anything that if you confronted the developer and said your story blows ass, he'd say it was on purpose, leaving the player character questioning the god that left her with such a meaningless existence. Trouble is, when this developer has already purposefully made bad games, you can't tell how seriously we're supposed to take anything. When a f*** fucks up constantly, it's hard to take him seriously when he says, "Oh, I meant to f*** that up." But I can't help but think that if the developer gave a rat's ass about the game's story and wanted it to be told, he wouldn't have made advancing the story so damn difficult. Results the same, being bad on purpose is still being bad. The game is also terribly coded. You don't get audio for this video because neither Fraps nor Plays TV would actually register that Uriel's Chasm 2 is a video game, and I ended up getting this footage with Hypercam. Bear in mind, Fraps had no issue recording big rigs. This is the only release on Steam I've ever seen that doesn't let you access the Steam community mid-game. The game doesn't stop you from mapping all 6 controls to a single button, which immediately renders the menu impossible to navigate, and there may or may not be a major glitch that renders a given playthrough of the game completely unwinnable. There really is nothing at all to this game beyond a barely existent threadbare excuse plot and banal gameplay that's not stimulating at all as you replay the same 2 levels 1,000 times for a chance to try and get further, so pretty much the only thing left to talk about is I don't even know what this is. Most of the time that you get to the 3rd garden level, the player talks about Mayhem, some character who, of course, has never been mentioned. We're informed that Mayhem has informed her that she's a character in a video game. Go figure, something interesting happens and we're not around to see it. And before the 4th boss, you get a Bible quote, and then I die on the boss. But on the 2nd time that I managed to get this far, something completely different happened. The dialogue tells the girl not to disconnect Ethernet, and you get some dialogue where Mayhem tells the girl that he's about to rescue her from the game. You start fighting the fourth boss, and the fight abruptly ends, and you're taken to a slider puzzle where you have to unscramble an image of a cassette tape, and there's some gibberish at the top of the screen about some kind of a message. I am not joking. At completely random playthroughs, this happens during the fourth boss, and it happens with no context at all. I have no idea what this is, why I'm doing it, or why any of this is happening in the first place. I solve the puzzle, I'm shown another few grainy, nonsensical seconds of a building, and then it just drops me at the game over screen in the main menu as if I had died. I kept playing the game, and it just goes on as if I had died like normal and been forced to start over. I even got back to the fourth boss, and the game continued the same as the first time I fought him. I was ridiculously confused by this whole thing. Having slogged through this game for an hour, making no progress by this point, I assumed Mayhem's appearance advances the story or takes you to the real game or something, but I just couldn't figure out what happened. His appearance didn't do anything except auto-kill me, so what the hell does he do? Did he appear at random? Do I do something special to make him appear? Does he appear if you play the game a certain amount of time? Is it a function of her score? Is it your health? Is it a glitch that skips levels and breaks the scripting because the boss is different if Mayhem appears? The next day I slogged through these levels I've played a dozen tedious times already, and after playing the game for 45 minutes straight and on my 5th crack at mighty number 4, Mayhem appeared again, whereupon the exact same thing happened. Slider puzzle, random cutscene, game ends. I even waited on each screen for 5 minutes apiece, waiting to see if something else happened, because the music is completely different from the rest of the game. I am at a total loss here. I have no idea what triggers the game to go down what is either an alternate ending or the true path through the game, and I have no idea why the game just kills you once it happens. I've pretty much ruled out Mayhem's appearance being tied to anything that you actually do in-game, so he either appears if you just play long enough or at complete random, and even then he doesn't seem to do anything. But why is Mayhem referenced in the normal path through the game if he only appears on the alternate path? It's like some quantum physics shit going down. Part of me is curious to keep playing the game and figure out how any of this crap works and if there's more to the game, but I've been playing the same 2 levels for 2 damn hours, and a much larger part of me is sick to death of playing the same 2 shitty levels trying to force the game to do something interesting. See, the downside of the developer tanking their reputation by intentionally making a horrible game is I'm less inclined to believe that this is some grand meta plot that rewards multiple playthroughs, and I'm more inclined to think that he's just screwing with me or that this wasn't even intentional to begin with. I have zero confidence that any investment into the game is going to be rewarded. To hell with this noise, I'm out. You can take your grand mystery and shove it up whatever overly flowery language you use to refer to your ass. Uriel's Chasm 2 is utter garbage. The gameplay is broken on a fundamental design level and never evolves beyond being pure tedium. The story is damn near non-existent and so full of pretentious gibberish that it actively discourages you from trying to decipher it or make any progress. It's not even so bad that it's funny like the first game was, it's just so bad that it's awful. The only remotely positive spin to this whole game is the hope that someone will take its premise and make a game that's worth a shit with it. And please God, do not let there be a Uriel's Chasm 3!